Hi everyone, my name is Bridget and welcome to my channel. So today my video is a little bit different, although I have another 2 videos coming out after this. This video is me sharing my experience with psychedelics. So it's a bit long, so I'm going to get started. My journey with psychedelics didn't begin with curiosity. It began with pain, with questions, with a life that felt like it kept unfolding in waves of challenge I couldn't explain. But before I even speak about my experiences, I need to say this clearly. Psychedelics are not casual. They are not recreational in the way the world has tried to package them. There is something deeper here, something that demands respect, discernment, and responsibility, because this is a rite of passage. Because my journey didn't start in a moment of weakness, it started in survival. After a difficult childhood, I found myself later in life walking through more than I've ever thought I could carry. I was suffering from complex PTSD, the effects of narcissistic abuse, and anxiety so intense that I would isolate myself for days at a time. One of my children suffered a brain aneurysm at age 6, which led to 4 brain surgeries, and my other daughter faced spinal surgery for scoliosis. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I kept asking the same question: why? Why does life unfold like this? Why does suffering seem to follow some of us so closely? And where is God in all of that? That question didn't leave me, it grew louder. And eventually it led me somewhere I never expected. But to understand this path, we need to go back, way back before modern systems, before labels, before things were commercialized and misunderstood. There was a time when humanity lived closer to Earth, tribal and connected. A time when people understood that nature itself carried intelligence. In those communities, there was always a structure, a leader and a guide. The medicine person, the shaman, the one who had walked between worlds and returned with wisdom. These substances, what we now call psychedelics, were never treated lightly. They were sacred tools, not for escape, but for insight, not for entertainment, but for transformation. And most importantly, they were never taken alone. There was always guidance, protection, preparation, and integration, but not the integration that is spoken of in these circles today. Because people understood something we've largely forgotten. When you alter your state of consciousness, you are stepping into a space that requires stability, grounding, and care. That's the part the modern world often skips. When the opportunity first came for me to experience psychedelics, I was afraid, deeply afraid. I wasn't someone who grew up experimenting with substances. I didn't drink much and I didn't explore drugs. This wasn't a part of my identity. But there was something inside me that said, you need to face this. So I did. My first experience was intense, more than I could process at the time. It shook me, it stripped me, and when it was over, I said to myself, never again. But something interesting happened in the weeks that followed. I felt raw, open, vulnerable in a way I couldn't explain. But underneath that vulnerability, something had shifted. Something inside me had moved. And that's what made me pause, because even though the experience was difficult, I couldn't deny that something real had happened. By the time I reached my 3rd experience, I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was listening. I felt a pull to understand, to learn, to go deeper, not blindly, but consciously. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was being prepared. Because life didn't get easier. In fact, at one point I lost everything I thought was stable, Everything I thought defined me, and in that breaking, something else began. A spiritual awakening. Not the kind you see on social media, not the aesthetic version, but the kind that dismantles you, the kind that forces you to confront yourself, your beliefs, your patterns, your relationship with God. And from that place, I began to receive clarity, not all at once, not perfectly, but enough to begin sharing. That's where these teachings come from, not from theory, but from walking through it. Now here's where I need to be honest, even if it challenges what people want to hear. Not everything about the current psychedelic space is safe. And that doesn't mean the substances themselves are inherently harmful. It means the way they are being used can be. We are living in a time where sacred things are being made mainstream, where depth is being replaced with trend, where people are stepping into roles they may not be ready to hold. And that matters. Because holding space for someone in a deeply altered state is not a casual responsibility. It requires maturity, integrity and training, emotional stability, and a grounded understanding of human psychology and vulnerability. Right now, there are people facilitating experiences while still deeply unhealed themselves, and that doesn't make them bad, it makes them human. But it also means that they may not be equipped to guide others safely through intense inner experiences, not even if you have studied psychology. And that's where caution is needed, because when you open yourself emotionally, mentally, and above all else, spiritually, you are in a highly suggestible and sensitive state. And the environment, the guide, and the intention all plays a role in what unfolds. So this is not about fear, it's about awareness. If someone feels called to explore psychedelics, that call should be met with responsibility, with preparation, and with discernment. Ask questions, understand who's guiding you, understand your own mental and emotional state, and most importantly, do not bypass the inner work, because people are doing ceremony after ceremony, but they don't give time in between to work with what they have been shown. Because no substance can replace that. What I've come to understand is this: the real transformation doesn't come from the experience itself, it comes from what you do afterwards. It comes from how you integrate, how you reflect, how you choose to live differently once you've seen something deeper within yourself. And through my own journey, through the breaking and the rebuilding, I've come to a place of surrender. And I don't claim to have the answers. I don't claim to know exactly where this path is leading. But I do know this: I'm being guided. And instead of resisting that, I've chosen to follow it with awareness, with humility, and with a responsibility to speak honestly about what I have experienced. This path isn't for everyone, and it is not something to be taken lightly. Because anything that has the power to open you also requires the strength to hold you. And that strength doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. It comes from your relationship with yourself and with God. That's the real journey, not the substance, not the experience, but the transformation that follows. And that's where the truth lives. So, that's my journey with psychedelics. I hope someone has found this informative. Wishing you a magical day. God bless.